I will request Mr. Shahi, President India Energy Forum, to please give his presidential address.
Thank you, Mr. Bambani. Mr. Bajaj has laid a good footprint for various issues, and the guidelines are there with all of us. I would only make a few points, and then I come back again toward the end after the question-answer session while summing up. The first point I will make is that let us not have any doubt that emergence of renewable is quite real. It used to be slow, picked up. It is going to be faster than we have seen so far. The renewables have to be accepted in that manner. And that's a message for all of us who have pursued all these decades the conventional power route. I'm not trying to say that the conventional power would be given a go by, but the pace of expansion of renewables, particularly solar and wind, would be much faster. But that puts a lot of challenge as well. Already we have started sensing the challenge of how to manage the grid. Of course, our preparedness is going to be there. It is there today. We did not have the amount of solar that we wanted to have by 2022. That was 100 gigawatt. We had a little more than half of that. And perhaps the challenge that would have been faced if we had 100 gigawatt by now, I mean, we can just imagine what would have been the challenge on the grid management. So therefore, load variability, mismatch between consumption and the supply because of these inflows that would come in a much faster way in the future will have to be managed. So the emergence of renewable is real, but equally real is the essentiality of storage. We have been hearing battery, some researches are going on, hydrogen, and so many things. But the way the renewables are coming into the grid, corresponding changes and corresponding pace, we are not finding in terms of what would happen to the storage. Battery at an affordable cost looks to be a little far away. Other sources of energy which could match the backing up requirement during evenings is getting into some delay. We are hearing researches are going on here and there. And therefore, this subject has become imminent. In one way, the hybrid system of solar and wind provides a part answer to the question. Good thing is that the beginning has been made. There is a policy. Developers are enthused. The hybrid of solar and wind, to some extent, will take care of the problem of solar not being available during evenings, to some extent, but not fully. And therefore, the pump storage has been recalled now. I mean, this is not a new technology, something new innovation. This has been known to us. We have had experiences, good and bad both, of setting up and of operating the pump storage plants. There are some good examples of successful operation. There are a number of not so successful examples of the pump storage in the grid. In the past, the enthusiasm for pump storage was not there because to pump water to raise level, you needed electricity, and electricity cost was high. And in any case, electricity was mostly fossil fuel, continues to be so. So therefore, from climate point of view, it didn't make much sense then that if I consume 2 units of coal-based power generation to generate 1 unit of hydropower through pump storage, from climate point of view, that was not making much sense, nor was it making considerable sense from the economics point of view either. But in today's context, when we have many unanswered questions on the backing up during evenings, this recalling of and establishing the relevance of the pump storage is a good thing. And we must compliment the Ministry of Power to have come up with a set of guidelines as to how we should encourage pumped storage and how we should go about it. I think some points have been made by Mr. Bajaj. But in one way, I would say that all your hydro projects are storage projects, whether they are storage hydro projects or non-storage hydro projects. Let us see that run-of-the-river projects, they also provide us, they definitely provide us a storage during 24-hour period, depending on the extent of pop bondage that we have given. So we have flexibility. We have flexibility to preserve water for 24 hours and then use this water during evening. This may be true for a large number of run-of-river projects. This may not be true for all. So we have to find out. So I think first step towards this pump storage would also be that let's assess the potentials that exist in already constructed and under operation hydro projects, which are not really the storage projects like Tehri or like Bhakra or like Sardar Sarovar and many others, but they are run-of-the-river projects like, let's say, Napta Jakri, which is the largest hydro project in the country, and they have a storage for 24 hours. So I think a reassessment or assessment of the storage capability during 24-hour period of the existing hydropower projects, and we have 50,000 megawatt hydro capacity in the country, 50,000 megawatt plus. I think that would be an important step, and I don't think an action in an organized manner has been taken to see to what extent the existing hydro projects under operation could also serve or could be made to serve the need of being storage projects during evening hours. So that I think that is one recommendation definitely. That's not really the pump storage, but in a way you can say that it gives the same amount of electricity during evening hours, maybe giving less electricity during daytime. But now daytime we have large amount of electricity through solar system. I think that is one exercise that needs to be done. Coming to the pump storage, some points again have been made by Mr. Bajaj, but I would say that the guideline is comprehensive. It has many good points, but it falls short on an organized way of going about it. And there I will quote the example of what we tried to do under the competitive bidding guidelines for the thermal power projects, that lot of preparation, perhaps all preparations, pre-construction preparations, will be done by a shell company and which will hand over the project to whoever gives the best price. That is one method, one reference point. Based on the experiences of past few years, we can further improve upon that process. But that process is a foolproof process of trying to see that you can have a powerful takeoff in having to organize first all the initial things so that in the existing power projects, hydropower projects, land acquisition may not be a big issue, may be a marginal issue. In altogether new site, it might be an issue. Forest clearance might not be an issue or maybe a marginal issue in many of the hydro projects. That is another assessment that should be done very quickly. I'm not sure whether it has been done, to the best of my knowledge, in a comprehensive manner, having a look at all the 50,000 megawatt capacity. That exercise has not been done. That which of these hydro projects, other than the point that I made on the run of the river, which of these hydro projects could also be a good site, good place, an appropriate place to have pump storage system. Because that straightaway takes care of a lot of initial issues of land requirement, initial issue of forest clearance. As I said, it may or may not be, it may be a marginal issue here and there, but that can provide a potential that out of the existing hydro projects where we can do. Then comes the question of other projects, altogether greenfield projects, and that study needs to be done. And it is there where my suggestion is that we should try to further improve upon what we already did in case of ultra mega power projects, that shell company, maybe PFC supported, REC supported, or anybody else supported, maybe NHPC supported. These shell companies do all the initial work. And finally, on the basis of competitive bidding, that is offered. Whatever incentive we want to give, that we can discuss, decide. Some idea has been given, a tax concession, some idea has been given. Free power is not a relevant issue in this case. We must prevail upon the states not to think about that. Those things are good points in this. But one point, it looked to me a little out of place, that when we are talking of power market in a competitive manner, whether public sector and private sector compete with each other, whether it is generation projects or transmission projects, why do we have the preferential treatment? Because when it comes to competitive bidding, I mean, some of the strategic projects in the border areas, I mean, one would not talk about that need not come as a strategic selection of some public sector companies or government company. But then largely the way we have gone through, I think you remember when NTPC was given a large number of thermal power projects without having to go through the competitive bidding, there was hue and cry, and well-deserved hue and cry. I think because both of them have to compete. Energy exchange, they have to compete. In PPA bidding, they have to compete. So therefore, preferential treatment will have to be avoided. Strategic hydro projects, of course, would be an exception. But rest of the places, I think the ultra mega project modality with further improvement after discussion could be a good starting point. But I think this is a subject where three things. One, existing hydro projects have the capacity of being storage. Existing hydro projects have the capacity of housing pumped storage, and the new sites need to be studied. Some grant funding could be done, and those grant funding can become the cost to whoever is finally selected bidder to develop the hydro project, like the thing we did in the ultra mega project. I think these are some of the initial thoughts that I have. There is not much to criticize because so many good points are there in the thing. But how do we go about it? Because that is very important. We can have best of the guidelines, but take off and an organized manner of ensuring that the construction starts faster. Those are the points. And then the point that Mr. Bajaj made, 2 years maybe short or not short, will depend on what initial nurturing we are doing to bring these projects to a shape that it can start. And there, definitely there is a scope for doing much better. Thank you very much. And then we will listen to the panelists. And then again, I'll come up in the end. Thanks a lot. To Mr. Grover, but let's discuss this point of Mr. Garg. What are the other views? See, hydro project today, that is not under competitive bidding. I also suggested that so far as the PSP is concerned, we should not make distinction between public sector and private sector and try to put on the competitive bidding. But the question is, would the pump storage have the same problem of geological surprises, etc., that we need not put it through competitive bidding and try to do it through 62 route? Or do you think that it is still possible, if proper investigation is done, that we should get out of section 62 and put it only on competitive bidding? And then adoption of tariff will be a sort of routine matter for the regulator. Let this point be discussed a bit. Rakesh, what will hydro project today? Because as you know that we did in the tariff policy made for thermal, competitive bidding, more or less we made it compulsory, except for the NTPC ones that did that adventurous thing. But for hydro project, we did not do this for the reason that hydro projects do suffer number of surprises during construction. And therefore, since investigations are not always very comprehensive and perhaps cannot be, therefore we said, okay, let it be under 62 and let regulatory commission be satisfied about the cost of construction. That was the approach. Now on PSP, if we have tariff-based competitive bidding like we have for transmission, then Rakesh feels that we can still work on PSP without having to go through section 62.
Yes.
I got it. So I think that will be a conclusive recommendation that except for very extraordinary situation of any peculiar project, something comes up particularly in Himalayan geology, almost all, and only on this point. That's why I encourage some discussion on this point
Sir,
because this is a
now
very
we now
solid
we
point.
come.
Garg, sir, Mr. Garg, please hold on.
Yes,
On
sir.
this important point of tariff-based competitive bidding, all the existing hydro project sites where already operating projects are there, there in any case, it will not create much problem. Other than Himalayan region, in other places, particularly south of Himalaya, and mostly in Maharashtra and other places in South India, it should be possible to carry out reliable investigation and which should become a prerequisite for competitive bidding. All PSPs in that case should be subjected only to competitive bidding, tariff-based competitive bidding. Now, we have already discussed that we should try to follow the ultra mega project approach, where government gets this state government or central government, but the central government creates a fund. And what you missed that point which I made, what we had done in ultra mega project, this was not a fund to be taxed on the government. That extra cost became part of the project cost, and the shell company passed on that cost to the new developer who paid for it. So therefore, this is not a burden. It is only to provide a bridge funding type of thing in the beginning. That is how it was. The shell company was done. But PFC when Garg was there, and we had put PFC a few projects, REC a few projects. So I think that is good. What is your other is there that I know Mr. Grover may be thinking. See, we are all in for because we are going to have a big event on nuclear. Nuclear is also a support to solar, no doubt about it. What we are discussing is that there's not one option that will be enough. I mean, then considering the time frame in which this solar is coming and wind is coming, we will start facing problem. Like we would have faced problem as I made in the introductory remarks if 100,000 megawatt had come by now from the solar side. Which, it did not come. Otherwise, we would have faced a huge problem. So therefore, we are going to support nuclear in a big way. You will see just after I think on 2nd we have the nuclear conference, and therefore it's not a substitute for this. Nuclear on its own greatly qualifies for the base load, and it can support even in evening and all that. So and that we will try to encourage as much as possible. But considering the size of and the scale of solar and wind that is going to come in next 5-10 years, we will have to have this option also there. There will be other option as well. Dr. Gorg, you wanted to have. I think we should object to this provision because this is the type of thing they will put in the guideline which will make it totally non-workable and will become
ठीक रहेगा sir.
subject to audit and all that. What is the benchmark price? There can be not a benchmark
Yes.
price like that. When we are saying that you will have in competitive bidding, the tariff will evolve, and we are trying to avoid certain difficult projects, don't do it. Any special treatment that is required for a special type of project, you can deal with in any manner you decide. But we have agreed that vast majority of PSP sites which have been identified or will be identified in the future, leaving out difficult terrains in Himalaya, you will not have problem of uh, not being within the cost if you have done a good study. So I think this clause, what you are saying, 3.4, we should say this clause has the mischievous potential of keeping the whole project in the doldrum. It will not be allowed to. Any number of objections will. But the home estate itself, I mean, let there be there some debate on this.
Yeah.
Now we have, see, in good old days, we had home estate, we had regional power stations of NTPC. When we did not conceive those days of national grid, the national grid has come. Power can go from any place to another place. Should we continue with this? Because, see, somehow states seem to be feeling that they did PPA, the project should belong to them. So they did PPA, they got the power, they paid for power, that's the loan was paid to the bank, and that, as it happens in any other industry. Should there be reservation for home estate? That is another issue we can discuss. You don't, it is, I want others' comments. What Ajay said, that let there be a capacity charge, and that capacity charge should be paid in the PPA, according to the PPA provision. because we don't know what will be the water availability, etc., etc. But whoever makes the PPA, he pays the capacity charge. And there will be operation and maintenance, so that variable charge can be separately dealt with. How do you react to this? Annuity is like road model. But tell me one more thing that we did not discuss. This is a good point. To some extent, distribution reform may come out of this, but using the shoulder of maybe the pump storage. That is, that if somebody is prepared to have a PPA where solar power is used, conventional power is used, and PSP is used, and they don't depend on anybody, total load is catered to, they get out of the clutches of the distribution company. In such cases, because of PSP, encouraging PSP, because of encouraging renewable, we are giving a choice to the industry to do so, to have PPA with somebody who arranges this. In which case, this cross subsidy surcharge should not be there, the way it is there for captive.
So today there are industrial example.
That will boost this renewable, this PSP in a big way. What we should be saying is that for captive it is already there, for cooperative it is there. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is a power purchase agreement which integrates all these: pump storage, solar, wind, and conventional. And that is between the supplier and the industry consumers. We can put a rider so long as it is on either national grid or maybe not lower than 132 kV system, so that it does not use the grid of or distribution infrastructure of the state. In such cases, cross subsidies, transmission charge of course will be there, but cross subsidy surcharge should not be there. So you fail to get it in tariff policy.
And then
It will be rejected. It will be rejected by states, because it cannot come in the tariff policy. I tell you why. In the Act, in the transmission section, when open access has been allowed, they said that this section 42 will apply. This is not on tariff policy. I am saying that under the banner of pump storage encouragement, that we are not asking for the cross subsidy surcharge or zero cross subsidy surcharge. You can say theoretically it can be zero cross subsidy surcharge or 1% cross subsidy surcharge, because then in that case, Act will not be validated. We go through this. This is a thought. We will try to refine this. Okay. Hey, renewable will come. You see.
No, the rate of
it is automatic. Question is, PSP is a future preparation.
right.
Renewable is already on the door. PSP is a future preparation. Renewable PSP will come in 5 years. Let us see.
For the
And
progress,
solar and wind will
It
go
is
on
for-
getting added. Yeah,
It is
correct. It would be like this, Ajay. We allowed captive power people certain facility, in spite of having PPA with the discoms, that the discoms are having the power to supply. So that will be there. That this contract separate from that contract, okay. There is an option available, like one example Anil just now gave. There is an option available where maybe 5 years down the line, 4 years down the line, somebody wants to have complete arrangement of thermal, hydro, renewable, pump storage, all put together, self-contained. Then the system does not disallow. That is the point we were discussing. We will try to fine-tune this. No, I am going beyond captive. No. Just let it be very clear. It is not necessarily captive. That means you are doing it with a group of industry. It is not necessarily captive. Captive, so it is already there. Group captive is also there. We all made that it is there. Beyond. Because you see, somehow, discom, we are going on a burdening discom. Now we are also going to burden DCM through this. that they will pay capacity charge. Again, they will make, oh Allah, capacity charge we have to pay, we don't get. To the extent we release this tension, and if the market is able to take, everybody is aggrieved. They are aggrieved against us, industry is aggrieved against them. So we have designed a system that nobody do. You see, some of the things we have to digest now. Nah. We have waited far too long with the discoms trying to reform themselves. We will make us, let us see how it goes, because I only, very frankly, I told you, I wanted to use the shoulder, an opportunity of this promoting PSP and doing a greater service to renewable, and still trying to put something on the discom, because how many things we will go on with? They are aggrieved against us that we are loading them, and industry is aggrieved against them that they are loading them, and nothing is moving. That is that is additional thing, but under the guideline that is being done, and to what extent we encourage this. You see, different options of developing PSP should be facilitated. One option is discom PPA annuity charge, that is that, which is the normal way. Some developer, PPA, and this, that. Another option is captive, and captive we have the thing. Another option is, so long as Rakesh just now picked up that point, that and which I had made, that if you are getting totally out of discom supply and managing on your own with some arrangement, contractual arrangement, and in which renewable and PSP inevitably will have to be a part of the process, because this is a 24-hour supply contract, and not that you have a standby discom and all that. In which case, all this paraphernalia of this charge and that charge extra, you pay for whatever it is. So, because our wish that when we frame this, that cross subsidy surcharge will be very small, that has been used to further cripple that whole arrangement of open access by discom, regulator, and load dispatch center of the states put together. So I think some opportunity of this can be, we can work that out. All your sentences are perfect, except that we should demand and expect from discom. Do you know, one day I was debating in the Ministry of Power, the industry, 90% of industry takes supply on infrastructure, which has nothing to do with discom. So there is nothing to demand from them. Only we as policy makers and legislators that we got into this problem. Unnecessarily, I did not notice that point at that time itself. I and you could have done something. We gave a formulation in transmission section for open access, linking it to section 42. So therefore, if non-discriminatory open access is asked on the transmission system, where discom has nothing to do, neither to maintain nor to develop, and power supply is on an infrastructure which is not owned by discom at any point, still discom charges this cross subsidy surcharge.
Additional surcharge, yes.
That is because of our weakness of not fully appreciating it. Now it is too late.
Yeah.
So all your sentences are 100% correct, except we should demand from discom and expect. They have no role to play, in fact. All others are playing the role. They are neither generator, nor transmitter, nor supplier, but they still get entitled to the open access. We did not discuss, and I thought I had thought I should be saying in the introductory thing. You see, in the whole issue of pump storage, trying to back up this inadequacy of solar, that inadequacy of wind, one thing we are missing, that there is a great role to rearrange the consumption timing. In a 24-hour period, imagine entire irrigation of the country is done through solar. There was a time when we were under so much pressure that we asked agriculturists to use power only at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the night when the demand is less. Today we should be wanting the whole thing to be done by decentralized solar at every substation of 32 kV or even 11 kV. Then in that case, the matching thing will be much less in the evening because they have done it there. So, though it is a different issue, but very much relevant to what capacity of storage you are going to create on the whole. So I had a point that we should try to rearrange our consumption pattern over a 24-hour time cycle and see how best it is balanced. I mean, supplementary role will be of storage, but if consumption happens during daytime, what we used to happen in the evening, part of it, then to that extent the storage requirement becomes less. I mean, it's not linked to pump storage policy, but linked to overall approach. But we will preface this. Anything, no, even for what Ajay is saying, Ajay, you think about this. Question is, if it is deemed to be owned by DISCOM, no banker will finance this project. I don't think we can stretch. It is better we approach in the tax budget and say, and that like we did so many things, we have done so many things on your mega projects and other places, that power consumed for raising water to produce in the pump storage pump, the matching power or the power that is given to support the renewable energy would not be treated as purchase and sale of power.
Power, yes.